Welcome to the Dinar Daily, your source for information and analysis on developments surrounding international currencies. Today, we are taking a deep dive into a significant update from a long-followed community source known as Franc 26. This recent disclosure has generated considerable discussion, as it suggests that behind the scenes, a series of coordinated and confidential dialogues may be taking place concerning the financial futures of both Iraq and Vietnam. The information points toward high-level strategic planning that, according to the source, could be laying the groundwork for substantial changes in how the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong are perceived on the world stage. We will break down the components of this report, examining the alleged activities within each country's central banking system, the technological preparations being made, and the geopolitical shifts that could be influencing these potential financial reforms, all while maintaining a strictly informational and neutral perspective on the matter. The central claim that has captured the community's attention revolves around the assertion that clandestine meetings are being held in and around Baghdad. These discussions are described not as routine administrative gatherings, but as intensive, high-stakes sessions involving key figures from Iraq's financial sector. The narrative presented by Franc 26 suggests that the Central Bank of Iraq is at the epicenter of these talks, engaging in a comprehensive rethink of the nation's monetary policy. The gravity of these supposed conversations lies in their purported objective to fundamentally re-evaluate the mechanisms that determine the dinar's value. This process, as described, involves a collaboration with external experts, bringing international perspectives into a traditionally domestic sphere of policymaking, signaling a potentially serious and calculated effort to navigate complex financial transformations with global guidance and oversight. According to the report, these strategic dialogues involve more than just internal stakeholders from the Central Bank of Iraq. It is claimed that a consortium of international monetary advisors and specialized consultants has been brought into the fold. The alleged inclusion of these external parties is a critical detail, as it would imply a desire to align Iraq's financial framework with established global standards. The presence of international experts often serves to instill confidence and provide a level of credibility that can be pivotal when a nation is considering major economic reforms. Their role would likely be to offer technical assistance, share best practices from other emerging economies, and help construct a viable, sustainable model for currency valuation that could withstand the scrutiny of international markets and financial institutions, like the World Bank or the International Monetary Fund. The ultimate goal of these purported high-level discussions is twofold, as outlined by the source. The first objective is a direct re-examination of the dinar's valuation. This is a complex undertaking that goes far beyond simply picking a new number. It involves analyzing economic fundamentals, managing inflation, assessing foreign currency reserves, and creating a policy environment that can support a different exchange rate structure. The second, equally important objective is to secure broader acceptance for the Iraqi dinar on the global stage. For any currency to thrive, it must be seen as stable, reliable, and easily convertible. Gaining this level of trust and utility in international trade and finance is a long-term strategic ambition for many nations, and the report suggests these meetings are a foundational step in that direction for Iraq. A particularly fascinating element within the Franc 26 update is the claim of localized economic experiments. The source suggests that in certain carefully selected provinces within Iraq, a form of soft launch or trial run is being conducted with the dinar's exchange rate. This would involve local banks in these designated regions testing slightly modified buy and sell rates for the currency. Such a strategy allows monetary authorities to gather invaluable real-world data in a controlled environment. They can observe how consumers, businesses, and the local market react to small shifts in valuation without committing the entire country to a new policy. This method of isolated testing is a common practice in policy implementation, as it helps to identify potential challenges and gauge public response before a nationwide rollout. minimizing economic disruption. If these regional trials are indeed occurring, they represent a classic preparatory maneuver often seen before more significant monetary adjustments. Central banks use these pilot programs to fine-tune their strategies and build predictive models for a full-scale implementation. For observers, these localized shifts could serve as important indicators, potentially offering early clues about the direction and magnitude of a future, officially announced revaluation rate. By closely monitoring the outcomes of these controlled experiments, how they affect local commerce, savings behavior, and cross-border transactions, analysts within the central bank can make more informed decisions. It's a methodical and cautious approach to a process fraught with economic and political complexities, reflecting a desire to manage the transition smoothly and effectively. Should one be officially enacted in the future, the report also highlights a concurrent, strategic pivot within Iraq's domestic economy. A deliberate and gradual reduction in its reliance on the United States dollar. For years, the dollar has been ubiquitous in many internal Iraqi transactions, from large-scale trade to everyday commerce. The source claims that a concerted effort is now underway to encourage and, in some cases, mandate the use of the Iraqi dinar for domestic payments and contracts. This move, known as de-dollarization, is a powerful tool for bolstering national economic sovereignty. By promoting the use of its own currency within its borders, a country can strengthen confidence in its monetary system, gain better control over its money supply, and reduce its vulnerability to the monetary policy decisions of another nation. This shift away from dollar dependency is not merely a symbolic gesture. It is a fundamental component of preparing an economy for a stronger currency. If a country's own citizens and businesses do not have faith in its currency for daily use, it is difficult to convince the international community of its value. Therefore, this internal push to prioritize the dinar may be interpreted as a foundational step. It suggests that Iraqi authorities may believe the dinar is ready to assume a more central role in the nation's economy, or that they are actively working to create the necessary conditions to support a more robust and self-reliant financial future. This alignment of internal policy with potential external ambitions is precisely the kind of comprehensive strategy one would expect to see before a major currency event. Furthermore, the management of Iraq's oil revenues, the lifeblood of its economy, is also reportedly undergoing a significant change in philosophy. Instead of focusing primarily on the short-term inflow and outflow of petrodollars, there is a purported shift toward a more strategic, long-term approach to resource management. This could involve diversifying the country's sovereign wealth fund, investing in infrastructure projects that yield long-term economic benefits, and using oil wealth to stabilize the domestic economy rather than simply fund immediate government expenditures. Such a forward-thinking approach to managing the nation's most critical asset aligns perfectly with the broader narrative of building a more resilient and sustainable economic foundation, which is an essential prerequisite for any successful currency reform. Now, let's turn our attention to Vietnam. As the Franc 26 update draws compelling parallels between the developments in Iraq and those unfolding in Southeast Asia, Vietnam has been an economic success story for years. With impressive growth rates and a rapidly expanding industrial base, according to the source, the nation's leadership is well aware of its strengthening economic position and may be considering how to leverage this progress through its monetary policy. The State Bank of Vietnam is allegedly engaged in its own series of quiet, behind-the-scenes maneuvers designed to prepare the Vietnamese dong for a new chapter. These actions are reportedly focused on building the international relationships and domestic infrastructure needed to support a more prominent role for the dong in global finance, much like its Iraqi counterpart. The State Bank of Vietnam is said to be proactively strengthening its ties with major international banks and global financial institutions. For a currency to gain greater acceptance and liquidity abroad, it needs strong correspondent banking relationships and integration into the global financial network. These partnerships are essential for facilitating international trade, investment, and currency exchange. The report suggests that Vietnamese officials have been discreetly laying this diplomatic and logistical groundwork, ensuring that if and when the time comes to allow the dong to trade more freely or at a different valuation, the necessary international channels will already be open and prepared to handle the transition smoothly and efficiently. Another key signal highlighted by the source is the profound structural transformation occurring within Vietnam's economy. The country is rapidly moving beyond its reputation as a hub for low-cost labor and simple manufacturing. Instead, there is a significant and strategic investment in high-technology sectors, value-added goods, and advanced services that have a much greater economic impact. This evolution from a labor-intensive economy to a knowledge-based and technology-driven one makes its currency far more dependable and attractive to international investors. A strong, diversified economy provides a stable foundation for a currency, making it less susceptible to fluctuations in a single commodity or industry and ultimately supporting a stronger valuation over the long term. In conjunction with its economic evolution, Vietnam has also reportedly been making prudent financial moves, such as systematically paying down its external debt and diligently building up its foreign currency reserves. Reducing foreign-denominated debt lessens a country's vulnerability to global interest rate changes and currency fluctuations, while robust foreign reserves provide a crucial buffer to defend the value of the domestic currency and maintain stability in the financial system. These actions strengthening the real economy, paying down liabilities, and accumulating assets are all hallmarks of a nation methodically preparing its financial house for a potential revaluation. It paints a picture of a government that is not just hoping for a stronger currency, but is actively creating the economic conditions required to justify and sustain it. Returning to the Middle East, the Franc 26 update places significant emphasis on the technological upgrades within Iraq's banking sector. A revalued or more internationally active currency places immense strain on a country's financial infrastructure. It requires systems capable of processing faster international wire transfers, enforcing stricter compliance with global anti-money laundering regulations, and providing robust cybersecurity to protect against sophisticated threats. The report claims that Iraq is making substantial investments in these critical areas. This is not a simple or inexpensive process. It involves a coordinated overhaul of hardware, software, and regulatory protocols to align with international standards, such as those required for seamless integration with the SWIFT global payments network. These technological advancements are far from routine maintenance. They represent a fundamental modernization of the country's financial backbone. Undertaking such a costly and complex overhaul suggests a belief that major changes are on the horizon. A government would not typically allocate significant capital and political will to such projects unless it anticipates a future scenario where the banking system needs to handle a much higher volume of transactions with greater speed, security, and transparency. In this context, the infrastructure build-out is not just about improving current services. It is about preparing for a future in which the Iraqi dinar plays a much more significant and demanding role both domestically and internationally. Similarly, in Vietnam, the digital banking landscape is reportedly undergoing a parallel enhancement. The source indicates that new financial platforms are either in development or are currently being deployed across the country's banking system. These new platforms are designed with scalability in mind, capable of handling substantially larger transaction volumes with increased automation and efficiency. A key feature of these upgrades is better integration with global financial networks, which is essential for any country looking to increase its participation in the international economy. This focus on technological readiness demonstrates an understanding that in the modern financial world, a currency's credibility is intrinsically linked to the strength and reliability of the digital infrastructure that supports it. If the information from Franc 26 is accurate, these are not just incremental improvements but are strategic preparations for a scenario where the Vietnamese dong becomes a more actively traded international currency. A more prominent global role for the dong would necessitate a financial system with greater technical capacity to manage increased capital flows, ensure regulatory compliance, and provide a trusted and secure environment for both domestic and foreign investors. The simultaneous technological advancements in both Iraq and Vietnam, as described in the report, are one of the most compelling points of alignment, suggesting that both nations recognize modern infrastructure as an indispensable pillar for any future monetary reforms. One of the most pressing questions for any observer is, of course, related to the timeline. On this point, Frank 26 offers a measured perspective, cautioning that currency reevaluations are not instantaneous events that happen overnight. They are complex processes governed by a myriad of regulatory, legal, and political hurdles both domestically and internationally. However, the source suggests that both Iraq and Vietnam appear to be in what could be described as the late preparation stage. This assessment is based on the convergence of several key indicators: the reported internal policy adjustments, the significant technological investments, and the positive shifts in underlying economic fundamentals, all pointing toward the final steps before potential activation. This late preparation stage does not provide a specific date, but it implies that many of the foundational elements are now falling into place. For those who have been following these developments, the advice offered by the source is to focus on personal readiness now, rather than waiting for an official announcement. This involves practical steps to ensure that all necessary affairs are in order. The primary recommendation is to organize and verify all documentation related to currency holdings. This includes securing clear proof of ownership, maintaining legal records of purchase, and preparing any Know Your Customer (KYC) information that a financial institution might require to process a large transaction. A critical aspect of this preparation involves understanding the practicalities of currency exchange. The source emphasizes that not all banks are equipped to handle large-scale transactions of what are often considered exotic or non-standard currencies. Many local or international banks have specific rules, limits, and procedures for such exchanges. Therefore, it is advisable for individuals to research and identify which financial institutions in their area have the capability and experience to process significant dinar or dong conversions. Establishing contact with these banks ahead of time, understanding their requirements, and possibly opening an account can help streamline the process immensely when the time comes, preventing potential delays or complications that could arise from a last-minute rush. Another significant development highlighted in the update is the evolving regulatory landscape within both Iraq and Vietnam. The report claims that both countries are actively updating their financial laws, enhancing their compliance rules, and increasing their transparency requirements to align more closely with international best practices. These reforms are often prerequisites for gaining the trust of the global financial community and facilitating more open currency movements. A transparent and well-regulated financial system is essential for attracting foreign investment and for institutions like the International Monetary Fund (IMF) to give their endorsement. The alleged involvement of the IMF in some of these updates is a noteworthy detail, as the organization's cooperation often signals a deep, structural shift toward greater economic credibility. Geopolitically, both nations also appear to be making strategic moves that could create a more favorable environment for their respective currencies. After years of instability, Iraq has reportedly been making steady progress in improving diplomatic and economic relationships with its neighbors, working to stabilize its internal governance and asserting greater economic sovereignty. A stronger and more stable regional posture helps build external confidence in a nation's economy and, by extension, its currency. In Southeast Asia, Vietnam is emerging as a formidable economic and political force. Its active participation in regional trade agreements, its strategic alignment with international partners, and its growing influence are all factors that can enhance the viability and appeal of the Vietnamese dong on the global stage. The Frank 26 update also underscores the importance of education for those following these developments. Many individuals can become entangled in speculation, rumors, and unrealistic expectations. It is crucial to understand that a currency revaluation is not a lottery ticket that pays out overnight. It is a deliberate, multi-stage process that involves the establishment of new legal frameworks, the certification of banking systems, the signing of international agreements, and often a phased rollout to manage the economic impact. A well-informed individual who understands these intricate steps is better equipped to navigate the process, avoid being misled by unverified claims, and make prudent decisions based on official information rather than market noise. Ultimately, the information presented by Frank 26 about hidden meetings and coordinated preparations in Iraq and Vietnam paints a compelling, multifaceted picture. While the complete accuracy of these claims cannot be independently verified, the striking alignment of reported activities across different domains, monetary policy, banking technology, regulatory reform, and geopolitics is what makes the updates so intriguing to observers. Even if a full-scale revaluation does not unfold exactly as some might predict, many of the foundational improvements being described, such as modernizing banking infrastructure, strengthening economic fundamentals, and reforming financial laws, are positive developments that could still benefit the economies of both nations and those who hold their currencies in the long run. In closing, the central message from this detailed report is one of vigilant and grounded preparation. It suggests a focus on three key areas: ensuring all legal and ownership documentation is in order, establishing relationships with financial institutions capable of handling these specific currency exchanges, and maintaining a realistic, educated perspective on the entire process. The developments in both Iraq and Vietnam continue to be a subject of intense interest. The coming months may indeed be pivotal in revealing whether these numerous signals and alleged preparations will culminate in the significant currency shift that many have been anticipating for years. Thank you for joining us on the Dinar Daily, and we will continue to monitor and report on these events as more information becomes available.